I have a 6 and 7 figure physical product-based business, and I'm going to show you how I would make my first $1,000 a month selling Handmade in just 30 days, so you can literally just copy me. If you've been putting in the work and sales still aren't there, it can start to feel like maybe it's just not going to happen for you. I'll walk you through exactly what I would do from day one, what I would skip, what I would prioritize, and there's something specific I did in week 1 in my newest business that now makes 7 figures that most makers don't figure out for years, if ever at all. The bottleneck that you think is keeping you stuck isn't actually what it is. The secret for how to finally start your business is to collapse the time it takes you to find out what sells for you. I think a lot of people are afraid to start their business because maybe you don't feel your product is there yet, or you worry that you're not talented or skilled enough at what you do. So like, why would people buy your work? And if I'm off base, let me know in the comments what keeps you from starting. I'm genuinely curious to know. But I wanna say that your product being good enough or you being good enough actually has nothing to do with the sales and money you can make from selling your work online. And that is the good news, because those fears are rooted in the fundamental belief that we live in a meritocracy, where if you work hard enough, or if your thing that you make is good enough, then you'll get rewarded, right? But after 20 years as a self-employed maker and creative person, I have found that that is not true at all. And realizing this was the biggest light bulb moment I have ever had in my life. So what you think is keeping you stuck, while valid and real, is not actually what you need to figure out to start selling a lot of your products. The real bottleneck is not knowing what you can make that people will buy. So I'm going to share some ways so that by the end of this video, you know exactly what direction to go in. When I started my very first business, Tiny Hands, it took me 6 years of making all sorts of things, from like journals to beaded jewelry, pencil cases, and all sorts of like polymer clay charms before I finally landed on polymer clay food charms specifically. I spent a lot of time in trial and error, and I have started also a lot of failed businesses between Tiny Hands and eventually me starting a map art shop that made over $1,000 in the first month. So it's with this new store that I knew what people wanted to buy within literally the first 2 weeks of launching. And pay attention to that timeline. I didn't have some crystal ball telling me what would sell so that my shop opening was wildly successful. I only found out after I opened my shop. I think we all worry so much about needing all the right answers before we start doing anything scary. So let this be evidence that you don't. But we overthink and make things harder than it needs to be, and then we never launch even after years of dreaming of owning a shop one day. The first thing that makes this a whole lot easier is getting crystal clear on who you're making things for. Most of us start with the product. We make what we love, what we're good at, what excites us, and we assume that if we love it, someone out there will too. And that's not wrong, but when you don't pair that with a really clear picture of who you're making it for, you end up with a shop that feels pretty scattered, and sales that come in randomly and you never really know why anything works or why it doesn't. So like with Tiny Hands, for a long time, I was making products for people who like cute things, which is basically a lot of people and essentially no one. I had no step-by-step tangible way for how to find those people who like cute things. Not only was it too broad, but it was also too vague. With my map art shop, I knew before I listed anything, I wanted to make products for families who wanted meaningful and personalized art. People celebrating something like a new home or an anniversary or a place that had meaning for them and their family. Having that clarity made every other decision later on so much easier. Like, what do we make? What do we sell? How do we describe those products? Who do we reach out to? What occasions do we want to show up for? When you know who your person is, every decision gets easier, because instead of guessing at what might sell, you're just answering what one specific person needs from you. And that is a completely different and so much easier way to build a shop. Here's how to tell if you've got this right for yourself. If you feel activated, like you know with specificity where to go and what to do to find your customer online, then you have done a good job here. So think about who your person actually is. And I mean so specifically, not just people who appreciate handmade things. What are their other passions and interests? What gets them so excited that they would spend their disposable income on? What types of groups of people do you belong to that you can make products for? Because you're already your own customer. You're knowledgeable about the styles and designs that they would like. The more specific your answer, the easier everything that follows becomes, I promise you. Once you know who you're making for, the next question is what you actually put in front of them, and this is where most people massively overthink it. Most makers think they need a ton of designs and product listings before they can start making money, but that's also not true. When I started the Map Art Shop, I didn't launch with like 50 products. I launched with just 6 listings, but everything was built around that one customer, and that focus is what made it work. So here's what a tiny range looks like in practice. Just start with under 10 listings, and they should all be for the same person, ideally at a few different price points. You don't need a variety of everything that you can literally make. You can get there over time, but not when you're just getting started, okay? In fact, most businesses make 80% of their sales from just 20% of their designs. So you need a lot fewer items than you think. I really struggled with this with Tiny Hands in the beginning because I had no clear identity or customer. And that was reflected in the products that I made. And that's why that shop was so much harder to make successful. But with the Map Art Shop, it was colorful and fun, and it was personalized art. We started with different styles, but everything was cohesive and had a clear through line. And that through line connects to what I would call your special sauce, the thing that makes your version of your type of product recognizable as yours. So for the Map Art Shop, it was color, right? Simple. The market was mostly very muted and traditional, and while that's beautiful, I personally love color, and there wasn't anyone doing much in the personalized art space with that at the time. So I designed them to be bright and fun and eclectic. That one decision made us stand out immediately. Now, your special sauce does not have to be complicated, okay? It might just be your packaging, your color palette like it was for us. It could be a material that no one else is using in your market. It could be the emotion that your work creates. It just needs to be something specific and something opinionated, because just having good handmade work or just having beautiful work these days is not a differentiator enough. When you've got your product line and your special sauce figured out, the next thing you need is a visual identity that actually reflects it. That is how you bring everything together to articulate everything that we've been talking about. So that's like your logo, your shop banner, your social media graphics. All of it needs to look like one consistent brand. And if you have ever tried to piece that together yourself, you know it can take months. And that is where Design.com, who is sponsoring today's video, can help you with creating professional, high quality designs and logos. You literally just type in your business name and a few keywords, and Design.com generates logo options for you in seconds. And once you have your logo, you can use the same styling from the logo to make social media graphics, shop banners, business cards, postcards, and literally anything else that you need for starting your business and creating all of those visual elements all in one place. It is so easy. You don't have to learn complicated software to get good at branding for your new business. What you get from Design.com is professional and consistent, so that when someone sees your Instagram and then say lands on your shop, it looks like the same experience, the same brand. That builds trust, and so people are more likely to buy from you. That is the thing that most early shops are missing. So if you're interested, go sign up for a free Design.com trial. The link is in the description. Starting a business from scratch doesn't mean you need to build an audience before you can sell anything. You can borrow one instead, which is what I did with my map shop, and is a huge reason how it became so successful with so much ease in literally 30 days. Here's what I mean. In the first week of launching, I got traffic without any audience of my own. Instead, I reached out to influencers whose following overlapped with who my customer was, and I also ran paid ads to get in front of people who were already looking for what I was selling. I did not wait to build an audience first. I borrowed other people's audiences. other people who had taken the years to build their own following, so I don't have to. And that is what gave me real data on which of my products people gravitated towards, without me spending all that time building out my own following. So once I knew which products were working, I leaned into that. This speed in getting data on what works so you can keep doing more of that is a huge ingredient to the recipe for success that I don't feel like I've heard many people talk about. I feel like it's something I had to learn on my own, and I'm sharing it with you today, so I hope you take that to heart. Now, there are a few ways you can do this for yourself depending on what you're starting with and where you are. Craft shows are a great way to get that data if you are brand new. You just show up where people are already shopping, you don't need a following, and you get real-time feedback on what people respond to. Influencer marketing is another way that you can do this. Find people who have audiences that already overlap with who your ideal customer is, and then get your work in front of those people. If you want me to talk you through more specifically how to do that, I have a free workshop that goes through the whole process step by step. The link is in the description. And then paid ads are another way. Once you have a few products and a basic shop set up, which honestly, even that is something we all overthink, and it can really be so easy and be done in like max 2 weeks tops. But you can put targeted ads in front of people who are already looking for what you make without having to post every day or grow your own social media account first. You can get data and even sales on day one of turning ads on. Now, of course, big asterisk here, because you need to make sure you learn how to do ads or it is easy to waste your money. All three of these suggestions I have all do the same thing. They get your product in front of real buyers before you have built much of anything, which means you find out what people will actually buy from you a lot sooner. Now, here's another thing I would recommend if you can help it, because it was a huge help in how you can get data and sales more easily. The timing of when you launch can be what makes or breaks your momentum. Most makers launch when they feel ready, which is either never or 3 years from now, or like whenever they feel like it. And I get that. I really do get it, because I know building up to a launch is scary, and when you finally feel ready, you are just raring to go, right? But when you feel ready and when your customers are ready to buy can be two completely separate things. With the map art shop, I didn't just launch when I had enough products. I had a real deadline I had set for myself, and I launched when my customers were already in buying mode. And that is over the holidays in Q4. October and November are great times to launch because people are already out looking for exactly what you are selling, especially if you sell something giftable. In fact, I launched a third store, The Bright Jewel, during the holidays as well, and I made sales right away despite being a new shop. When you launch into existing demand, you don't have to create it or force it, right? You just have to show up, and that makes everything else easier. It makes getting data easier and faster. So now you're creating this feedback loop for yourself that you need in order to do well. That would be otherwise hard to get if you launched during a time when people were a bit tighter with their money. If you're thinking about starting a business and there's a peak buying period coming up soon, it is often worth giving yourself the good kind of pressure to get things going as soon as you can so you can ride that shopping wave. Q4 is coming soon, so maybe take this as your sign to finally get your shop off the ground. So the handmade gift category has 3 huge shopping windows. That's Q4, which runs October through about halfway of December and is by far the biggest shopping wave for a lot of shops. There's things like Mother's Day and Valentine's Day. Now, of course, you may make a specific product that works best in a different time of year, like wedding season in the summer. So consider your own unique customer and product. Once I had some data for the map art shop, I could see what was actually selling. And instead of adding more products or testing more ideas without any direction or just guessing and throwing spaghetti on the wall, I leaned into what was already working. And as a creative person, there is this huge urge to fight that, because making new things is exciting, and it's easy to convince yourself that, maybe the next one that you design might do even better, right? But the things that we're selling for a reason, and your job at this point is to figure out what that reason is and do more of that. So that often means just creating simple variations of the same style that was already working well. With tiny hands, I kept chasing the next big thing, and not only was it hard and time consuming to do, but the amount of times that I made something that flopped was way higher than when I just followed the data on what people were already telling me they wanted. And I really think that's a big reason growing tiny hands took so many years. A lot of getting into business for yourself as a maker is both art and science, okay? It is both creative and business. And how you grow your product line or decide on what new item to make should involve more business strategy, because that's the commercial aspect of business, right? So if you've been at it for a while and things feel scattered and you haven't started, ask yourself honestly, have you sold anything at all? Because if you have even just a little, that is your starting point. Really pay attention to that and analyze it and build your other products from there. And if you haven't sold anything yet, that is totally okay. That's what everything else in this video that we talked about is gonna be relevant to you. But getting you to that first data point is so crucial. Now, once you've launched and you've made some sales, come back and tell me about it in the comments. And your next concern is probably going to be, how do you keep doing this and how do you keep growing from here? Especially, how do you build an algorithm-proof business? I made a video about exactly that. It's how I built a $168,000 a year business selling charms for 10 years straight, every single year, without ever going viral. And it covers the 6 things that kept my income consistent through all of it. It's on your screen now, so go watch that next.